Ooh, yeah. Super space vibe, creepy town, funky jam music going on right there. Hey, everybody. This is Shaman John here again with you with another episode of the Wisdom Distillery. My guest today is Andrew Lovato. He's an opera singer. What? That's right. He sings opera much better than I do, obviously. He was recently in a performance of Carmen, sort of more updated version of the opera, the classic in the opera world, Carmen, here in Austin, Texas, performing at the Long Center. He's a baritone voice, and quite good. We saw him perform. It was really kind of a highlight of the show. He's from... Well, he's not from, but he currently lives in New York, because that's where you got to live if you're going to be an opera singer, for fuck's sake. You got to go where the work is. Like if you're going to be a country music guy or girl, you got to go to Nashville. If you got to be a porn star, you got to go to L.A. That's just how it works, right? Anyway, Andrew and I had a great conversation. It was good to have him here. He was actually our guest as an Airbnb guest. So it was cool, and he got us free tickets, which is also cool. Swag is cool. Free stuff is cool. But the good thing about this podcast is I, personally, and if you're a curious person, will learn something about opera that you probably didn't know if you're not, someone who follows opera. So it's educational and entertaining, because that's what we're all about here at the Wisdom Distillery, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe we're just jerking off. Who knows? Anyway, check it out. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Wisdom Distillery. I'm your host, Shaman John, and today we have a special guest in from out of town, our first out of town guest. He's actually staying with us because we Airbnb our extra rooms, and he's an opera singer named Andrew Lovato, and originally from Wisconsin, now currently living in Manhattan. Tell us how you do.
That's how I do.
Tell us, so you just wrapped up.
Yeah.
How many performances of Carmen? He did a modern version of Carmen. I don't know if this is going to play in different cities or this is only Austin.
Yeah, this is the end of the road for this production. Okay. Sounds like from the people I've talked to, but it's been good. So it was a co-production between Austin-Opera and Minnesota-Opera. So basically,
little sister city action.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that I don't really know the nuts and bolts of all that, but I'm sure Minnesota wanted to do the production, and they just kind of talked to other artistic directors and like, hey, split the money, and we'll just get some extra time out of this production. But it's a pretty common thing actually, even with new works. Yeah, like two companies will come together and be like, hey, we want a new piece in English. We'll pool our money, get a composer, and get a production, and then you can kind of split the risk that way. Because it's expensive to commission a piece, because for a composer. At least to my knowledge, it could take them like a year to figure out, because they have to get, again, a librettist to...
Well, with this piece, though, the music
not this one. Yeah, not this one.
Okay, but you're saying generally...
Yeah. If they want to commission a new piece.
A totally new piece.
Yeah.
Not an adaptation, say.
Yeah, exactly. So this, I guess it's a little bit less of an investment in that sense, but...
Still got to rent that theater. Long Center. That can't be cheap.
No, I know.
And I'll pay all you guys.
Yeah, it's a big endeavor for such a kind of niche entity, such a niche thing. Yeah. But yeah, so this is the end of the road for this production.
And what's next for you?
Well, I go back to New York.
Yeah.
It's audition season right now. So audition season is basically like end of November, early December, like kind of 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. Where all the companies basically the United States, they go to New York, and all the singers know this, so they all kind of pool into New York and just like one after another. Yeah. So I have about like 8 lined up at this point.
8 auditions?
Yeah, 8 or 9.
But what would be the most exciting one? Like the one you really, 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 really hope you get?
Most exciting one. Well, none of them are like giant. So opera's kind of broken up into like an A house is $10 million and up in terms of budget. B house is 1 to 10 million, and then C house is below $1 million. Just in a budget.
$10 million productions.
Oh, a budget for a season.
Oh, for a season. Okay.
And actually, I bet there are $10 million productions.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it's something like Miss Saigon must be ridiculous, right?
Yeah, stuff like that where there's a lot of
huge visual production and huge venues and
right, and especially
huge casts, right?
Well, especially with a lot of these pieces are hundreds of years old. You have to sometimes you got to spend a little money and juice it up and try a new concept. But yeah. But yeah, in terms of auditions, I don't know. There are a lot of C houses, some B houses, and.
But is there what is the content that you're excited about? Or content. Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like
right.
I really want that role.
There. Yeah, there'd be a couple ones that would be really cool to get. One is what's the name? Stanley in Streetcar Named Desire.
Okay.
I'm auditioning for, I think, two of those productions. So
do you realize our last roommate was?
I did know that. Yeah, I did talk about it. Yeah, I should have picked his brain.
That's great.
Yeah, and then there's I think one that's doing a La Boheme, which is
okay
in the opera world. It's a really famous. It's probably the most performed opera in the world.
Oh yeah.
Like Rent is based off of it.
Oh okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a cool show, and I would if I could do La Boheme for my whole career, just back to back, I would be a happy man.
Just take that on the road, man.
It's so beautiful. So I've done.
When you say that, like, what is it that you're attracted to about that piece?
I don't know. I suppose there's a lot that I relate to, but it's about these like 4 young men who are bohemians and trying to pursue this their each individual artistic form, and they go out and they meet these girls, and then just kind of stuff breaks down as it tends to do. But it's just beautiful, and the music is it's just profound. It's just fucking stunning. Can I swear on this podcast?
Of course.
Okay.
Swear like a sailor on this podcast. They're all, even if I don't swear, I put it as parental advisory just in case, because who knows?
Might as well.
Even if I'm talking to a preacher, you never know when a preacher's just gonna cut loose with some sailor language. Just kidding. So tell us about, why opera? Like, why not rock and roll, for fuck's sake?
Right, for sure. No, I mean,
you got the pipes.
No,
man.
And I love rock and roll, and it's a weird irony that. So okay, to answer your question, it was an accident. Like, I enjoyed singing in choirs. When I was younger, I actually never really considered myself much of a performer in that aspect, like a stage performer.
Yeah.
Like, I did some musicals in high school, but it was never like I feel like a natural on stage. Like,
this is my home.
Yeah, never ever felt
born
that way.
into it.
Yeah. No way. And it took a long time to figure out stagecraft, to figure out like, what the heck do I do in this situation where you're playing this? It's just completely not natural.
Feels
to
awkward.
Me. Yeah,
all of it.
But I've always loved music, and especially classical music. Yeah. I grew up playing the cello.
Okay.
And that really, it's influenced me to this day in my sense of, like, digging into a line and really, like, I don't know, just getting into a melody, getting into those harmonies that it's just a little bit different with singing on its own. But yeah, it was accidentally. Like, I auditioned for a solo in my freshman year choir. And the choir director was like, hey, you should take voice lessons. Maybe there's something there. And then it just kind of escalated from there. And the reason why I say, opera versus rock and roll, the irony or the paradox is that, like, if I want to sing emotionally, the voice just naturally gets that, like, vibrato, that kind of operatic thing. So, like, I mean, unless there's a rock and roll genre that would have that sort of thing, I'm almost doomed to, like, this one style, because that's just how it's built. I would say
Iron Maiden kind of gets close to that.
Yeah, no, sure.
He's definitely got operatic style pipes.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
There's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Dream Theater.
When
it comes to their, like, songs, but like individual parts, they are the best in the world. I mean, they're
very well crafted.
And there's their singer especially. there's a track where he sings a high F above high C, which is just like the stratosphere for a male singer. I mean, it is in opera, like you might get a high D above high C, but like a high F is just unbelievable.
Really?
So yeah, it's just infinite respect.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy's a total badass.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's funny how much crossover there is in rock and roll and these more kind of classical art forms.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you see a lot of the cello being used, and Metallica worked with the London Symphony. I think there's a demand for.
Have you heard of Apocalyptica?
Yes, the quartet, the cello quartet. Yeah. It's just it's an interesting, like, each genre wants extra colors. Yeah, and we want to try to find new ways of expressing what we want, and that's kind of cool. Is
there such a thing yet? I guess the question is there a rock and roll opera?
Right, like more contemporary instruments with...
Yeah. It's... As opposed to just, I mean, obviously there are contemporary musicals that, incorporate all those kind of more modern qualities, but has opera integrated that yet?
Yes and no. I mean, my knowledge of the work, like the new compositions that are coming out now, I'm not too steeped in it. Yeah. But, I mean, I know Dead Man Walking, there's parts where they play like a rock and roll station or whatever, because they're in the woods and, this terrible thing happens. But there is a lot of electronic music that can be fitted with an opera. There's one, it's called... sorry, the name is escaping me. It's Dr. Atomic. Okay. It debuted about 15 years ago, but it's about Robert Oppenheimer. Oh yeah. Developed the atomic bomb and kind of the moral struggle and the days leading up to this nuclear explosion, and how they start out this opera is, it's like, it's not EDM, but it's like this electronic kind of like pulsating and like mechanical thing, and they play it before the opera begins, and it's supposed to show this like kind of how mankind is becoming mechanized, and this machine of both like external machines, like weapons and industry, but also this internal machine, this like we're becoming dead to these things. They're this, I don't know, it's this new morality. Like, can you just like drop one bomb and kill 100 million people? Like that's this new internal, like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
what's it called?
Dr. Atomic. It's a cool show.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it has its flaws, but it's a cool show. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff being done, and I had a chance to talk with a kind of an up and coming composer last summer, and he's big into EDM. So and he's a symphonic composer, but he says he incorporates a lot of electronic stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, it'd
be interesting to see like something from George Orwell done as an opera.
Dude, fuck yeah, dude. I mean, are you kidding me? Like some weird abstract animal farm. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And opera can be weird. Like you know, even like this production, of Carmen, which was updated to the 1970s, but they didn't really do it in a super radical way. Yeah. Like it was still conservative enough to kind of appeal to both sides of the coin. Yeah. But I mean,
you gotta fill those seats.
Yeah, but there are operas that are like freak shows in a good way. Sometimes a good way, sometimes a bad way. Right.
But that's the art. I mean, totally. In the arts, somebody has got to have the balls to fucking push the envelope.
And like I said before, some of these shows are 100 years old, so fuck it. Let's just fuck with it. So, have some fun. Like, whatever.
Bring it into the new century.
Right, absolutely. There's a famous and kind of goofy example of this this Wagner opera. I forget what opera it is, but in Wagner, he's considered like the heaviest, the darkest of the operas, and they had all the characters as rats. They were all just dressed as little rats, like just big rat costumes, and they just sang out this opera as rats.
Is that the only change in the whole thing?
Yeah, everybody dressed as rats? I think they were just in a rat world doing rat things and singing Wagner. Yeah, but I saw a couple clips of it, and it's funny because they were like the performers were top notch and were committed. Yeah. They were like into it, facing forward, hands out, like very intense.
Right, you're gonna get this.
So it's like you're
gonna see my. Like see past the rat costume to to the power of the narrative.
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. I mean, even if you're a rat, it's still about relationships.
That's right.
Rat relationships, you know, and how we all relate to each other. But and then on the opposite side of that, like, you know, there's the we call it park and bark, which is basically you just stand and sing and don't do anything.
Park and bark.
Which is a you know kind of a negative term or a pejorative term, but like sometimes it can be the most beautiful thing you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Someone just walks to the front of the stage, no movement. They just stand there for 5.5 minutes, and it's profound.
Yeah.
Like you don't need anything else.
Well, if it's if it's an embodied, you know, the simplest thing, like a lot of artists, you know, especially as a musician or whatever, go for the big production.
Right.
And I've had these conversations with, like, you know, I like the theatrics of good rock and roll.
Sure.
You know, I love all the staging and the lighting and but there's a point where, but one of my favorite artists never had any of that, you know, and he was just up there solo, naked, and not literally, but, you know, just bearing his soul, raw and emotive and just pure. And those are some of the best shows I've ever seen.
Just like peeling back those layers of artifice and just being like, hey, this is what I wrote.
It's channeling like pure isness.
Yeah.
As opposed to like contriving. However great you've done in terms of contriving a performance, like however well crafted the thing is, Austin has a lot of really good song craftsmen. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's like that only has so much play, and then I'm bored. I'm like, okay, another great crafted song with great hooks and great blah 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 and all the parts. But it's like there's no fucking juice. There's no risk. There's no vulnerability, because it's just like it's too cerebral. You're too self-conscious.
You want it to be personal, like a real
you want to feel like you're on the edge of something. You want to feel like there's some danger there, like for somebody. Somebody, like either the performer and by proxy you know, like the emotional day, like that artist I was telling you about, the last show I saw him play, he basically had a freaking nervous breakdown on stage because he had just come back from a show in like Siberia, like major jet lag. They had told him that he was dying, basically, like, so he had died. He'd end up dying probably 4 months. Didn't mean to bring everybody down with this podcast. Yeah, but it was just like this. He was so real and so raw that he couldn't even pretend through the show. Like he basically sort of broke down mid-show, and they kind of had to take him off the stage. And we were all just sitting there, like going, Jesus. "What do we do? Like this is you know," because he had devoted fans. Like he was one of those people, like, you go to see videos of him on YouTube, you know, everybody gets slagged. Everybody's got trolls, basically. Almost no matter what you do on YouTube. No matter
of course.
Beneficent or whatever. Like, this is one of those dudes, like, you go to see videos of him and you go read the comments, and it's like a fucking shrine to this guy. It's just like,
awesome.
Oh my God, this guy. So, like, everybody in the room with him was like, how do we help? Like, we want to take care of this guy. It's Chris Whitley, by the way, in case you have some Chris Whitley fans out there. And we all wanted to just take care of the guy, or like, how do we, you know, we didn't know what to do. But that moment of real, raw human exchange, not that I'm saying like everybody needs to break down on stage, but that kind of realness and the capacity to just be there with whatever's going on. Even Father John Misty, like, I saw him perform on the day of the fucking massacre, the Vegas thing. Oh, wow. And like I think it was either day or either that night or the night after. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, because he's, you know, if you get to get a sense of him, he's through his music, he's a very sensitive person.
Sure.
He's always kind of playing at the irony and all that kind of stuff, but clearly a sensitive human being, sensitive to the world, which is what that whole new album is kind of about. And I'm thinking, how do you get up there and like la la la, sing some songs, entertain some people after things like that unfold? You know, it's like, how do you handle that? And he was just really, he acknowledged it. He acknowledged us and sort of thanked us for being there. He's like, I'm glad you're here. Like, it was this really nice, subtle drawing in a way that felt super personal, even though he's playing to whatever, a room of several thousand people. Right. But it just drew you into this experience of like, okay, it's okay for us to enjoy ourselves here. Like, we acknowledge the friggin' horror of this nonsense, and we can still enjoy this time together.
And you can kind of have both still. Like, you don't have to throw away the lament. You don't have to throw away the mourning.
Yeah.
For the sake of, you know, having fun or anything like that. You can kind of have both. You can combine both and make them
which I think to me makes a much more rich
totally.
experience. Yeah. And I feel like I'm drawn to that more nowadays. I think than I'm less I'm less interested in and what's the word, impressed by that.
Yeah.
That's sort of just hubris.
Yeah.
Unless it's meant almost done in an ironic way. You know? And then it's like
I understand.
Funny or whatever.
Well, it's just doubly impressive when someone can have the technical knowledge or the technical skill to play a great song and to have that great hook, that great composition, but to really lay it all out there and be like, yeah, this is me. Like, I'm not afraid of anything of what you think. And that takes a real professional, especially in front of thousands of people.
Totally.
Where you could argue, your career is on the line. If you botch this, those people are gonna, they're gonna not tell they're gonna tell their friends not to go to see your show. Right. But to kind of stand apart from that and be like, this matters more.
I think that's the draw for these, like, because I feel like more artists are being that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the draw in a more contemporary art world is that people, because I think our devices are disconnecting us in such a weird way, like connecting us and disconnecting us. That live. What we lack, it's kind of like Joseph Campbell. What we lack is the ritual. What we lack is the communion, like the real communion, like the smelly, dirty, sweaty, moist communion. Like where we're all in the room together and we're all feeling this shit and we're all being raw and we realize like we're all a part of this. No one here gets out alive, to quote Jim Morrison.
It's so tribal in a way. Like it really goes back thousands of years. I mean, I remember seeing one of my favorite bands of all time. They're Agalloch. They're a metal band. Agalloch.
They've got to be like Northern European.
No, they're from Washington State.
Oh well, they're northern US.
But they're this kind of what would you call it, like a doom folk melodic metal band. So they combine a lot of really cool elements. But aside from all that, I saw one of their shows in Chicago. And it was a real treat at the time because they're now broken up, but they rarely toured. This was like their first tour in like 8 years or something. It's ridiculous. But I remember, like, again, one of my favorite songs, one of their best songs, in this crowd of like maybe 300 people, and everyone was like headbanging at the exact same beat, the same time. Yeah. Just this like hush, this quiet. No one was screaming. No one was yelling. It was just this group of people all like grooving to the same thing. Yeah. Which I don't know, like again, like when I was in my room in my house, growing up, just kind of like listening with headphones, but to feel that everyone else they love it just as much as you do.
Pulse, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I do this. I used to do this group where we did Balinese Kichak monkey chant. It's like I don't know if you've ever heard of it. No, you see it if you've ever seen the movie Baraka, which is a great film. Must see. They have a scene in there, and it's all these kind of tribal-looking dudes. Well, I guess they're Balinese. I think that's where it was shot, but I'm not totally sure. Okay. And they're all just kind of sitting in their loincloths, and they're kind of sitting in this group, and one person holds this pulse, it's just kind of like the bass drum. It's just like a pop, 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 pop. And that pulse kind of keeps going, and then they just do these chants, and they have these really weird polyrhythm chant things, and they're all doing, and like one side of the, it's kind of like when you do the, what are they, the school rallies, where like, they get like this side of the room chant this, and then this side of the room chant that. Right. It's kind of like that vibe, only it's like super technical. Wow. And there's, it sounds almost frenetic, but it's totally controlled. You just have to look it up, trust me. Sure. But that energy, I used to do that, not nearly with the acumen that these guys do, but our group did a smaller kind of version of that, and we taught it at like the Flipside Burning Man thing that we have here in Austin. Okay. And so we do workshops in it and stuff like that, and the power of the collective, like you really feel the power of the tribe and how that. It's the same with like you get the same if you're in a band and you're playing with 5 guys or 3 guys. You feel that like when all those pieces lock in together, like something alchemaic happens, right? So when we do that with like a room full of 20 people or 50 or 100 people in these sort of organized groups like that, and those rhythms are locking in, and everybody's really just on it. Something else takes over. Like there's some other aspect of the human condition that's much deeper in our DNA that starts to just ring out and do its own thing as an organism, like as a collective organism. And it's like, because I think the more you get out of your head about it, the more you get out of your own sort of individualistic ego about it, what starts to happen is you know, like our bodies are a collection of organisms.
Right.
We are not just us, like whatever our version of that is. Like we're this whole freaking biome, you know, this whole like system going on, and all those systems have to work. But many of those things that make up us could just as well be taken out of us and go operate somewhere else. Like we need them more than they need us. In a lot of cases, right? So what you get a sense of, and I think you can kind of see this on a big scale with cities and organizations, when like things go bad, like all the institutions that help a thing run, like a city run or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Like those things are constructs by the human brain, the intellect, the ego, right? But nature, which we are a part of, has its own intelligence, has its own rhythm, and it's all self-organizing.
Yeah.
And so when humans have the wherewithal to actually let go of the strong-arming ego approach to management and actually surrender to what I think is fundamentally in us that's much deeper, much older, what you get are extraordinary results. I think creatively, organizationally, I think they're just things that we have yet to explore because people like to be in management positions. People like to consider themselves hierarchical, and they like to, you know, control and manage and arrange, like, because power wants to stay in power, right?
Yeah.
Goes into a whole other argument. But from a creative standpoint, the magic in artistry is to really surrender to that fundamental organizing principle that seems to sort of operate within us.
Yeah, that sense of empathy and sharing.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, sharing that moment or sharing that thing, sharing that world.
Just
how would you
sync?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't even know. You think about that's a post assessment.
Yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
Of it. But when you're in it, like, you know, go to your own experience as a performer.
Right. When
you're just like totally in flow, how much do you remember of the actual performance? Like when you're like out there and you're like, when you're in that moment, so totally in the moment, what, you know, all you have left is sort of, from my experience, all you have left is this sort of like post-interpretation of that.
Right.
But the actual thing of it was kind of timeless. Do you know what I'm saying?
For me, it's momentum. When things are going well, I feel this momentum.
It's like a wave, right?
Yeah,
like
it's like moving forward, and you're almost caught up in it as this bystander.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, I feel very much. That's again, it's the ironies. I feel very in control, and I feel very like motivated and linear. Like I'm just moving forward towards something. But that thing is also carrying me forward as well. Again, you know, without my input. But and the opposite is true. When things aren't going well or I'm not in it, it's just it's inertia, and I'm just like.
It's like if it weren't for my training, my years of training, this would be a total disaster.
Yeah. Oh God.
But that's what they say, right? You know, it's like you master all these skills, you learn all of this stuff. I mean, I know MIT grads are much like, not like Michigan, but out in the Musicians Institute in LA. I used to play with some of those cats when I lived in LA, and all of them would come out and be like, "It was a great school. I learned a lot, and I've had to forget all of that in order to actually play music again because it's so much technical. It's so technical. Okay. It's so like into the technical aspects of your brain that you start to lose the ability to just like free flow create, you know. And I'm sure everybody has a different experience, but at least the guys I played with, both a drummer and a guitar player, said the same thing. Like, great, totally glad I did it, and I've spent the last 2 years unlearning a lot of what I learned in that process. But of course, they're not really doing that because they're shredders. I mean, they're ridiculously talented, and they probably wouldn't have been as good had they not done all that. But I think that's what they say. It's like, you have to know the rules before you can let go of the rules, you know. Oh,
that's so fascinating. I could totally relate. It's just, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's a world filled with, you know, critiques and you know you have to play this lick this way, or you have to use this. I don't know.
Yeah,
this
it's ground that's already been tread.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like, so where do you fit in to with any kind of uniqueness or novelty.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to contribute to that? All these people are basically programming you with data, and it's great, and it's relevant, but it's like, at some point, you've got to find your own voice.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that if all you're doing is referencing all this bullshit that everybody's shoving in your brain?
Right.
You've got to dump that stuff off. And it's never going to be totally dumped off. I mean, unless you get Alzheimer's or God forbid or whatever. But you know what I mean? It's like you're kind of just what you're doing is sort of like cropping off the top. You know, like the roots are there, and that's gonna be the thing that carries you. Should things go awry?
Yeah, exactly.
That's gonna be your foundation, but you kind of have to chop the top off to let the new growth, like let something else breathe in there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think there's value in kind of being thrown to the wolves and like sink or swim. And a lot of times that happens outside of an institution.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you have to go to a gig and play good music. And you really have to fucking perform and make them love it. Because they're... people, like, it's their money. Yeah. And they work hard for it, and they don't want to spend money on a shit performance or, you know, there's a real, what's the word, like, we owe them, in a way. Yeah. Like, they're paying for, you know, something. That musician's meal. Yeah. Or whatever. So there's a real duty to I don't know, to step up. And it's scary. Where in academia, like, okay... at least in, you know, the classical world, maybe the performance didn't go very well, and you whatever, but it doesn't really matter. You don't really pay to see it because you know, you're paying to be there. But,
but I think I've always had that. It really bothered me when I would go to a show and feel like a sense of entitlement. Yeah, like they're above it, or they're too good or they just like you as the audience are lucky to be there. Sure. Yeah. It's like no, we're just sharing. We're just let's have fun. Well, and it's like especially if they have that sense, and they're not that good, you know. It's to kind of come in and phone in a performance. And I mean, I'm sure I've done that too. But it's usually if I'm doing it, it's probably because no one's fucking there, you know. Yeah. But. It's like I definitely feed off of people, so it's like if there's a show there, even if there's a show there, people who aren't necessarily there to see me, like I have that whole thing of wanting to make converts out of it. Sure. You know, it's the proselytizing preacher in me. But what do you think people don't? What were you surprised about when you got into the field of opera, and what do you think people? Well, answer that question, and then we can.
I mean, it's a niche art form. I mean, it really is, and it's like, it's for everyone, but it doesn't have to be for everyone. You know, like it's there if someone wants to come to it, and see a show. Yeah. Like I don't think like there's a part of the opera community that says, the world would be a better place if there was more opera. They should know about it. They should know about this. Like, whatever. Right. I mean, the world should know about country music. They should know about Indian music. They should know about Russian metal. Like, I don't know. There's so many ways that human beings have come up with these things to express themselves. Yeah. You know, like it's almost endless, and that's a good thing. So, but most people, you know, they don't know about opera because it's you don't grow up with it. It's not on the radio and. It really shouldn't be. I mean, it's really shouldn't. I mean, even that, like, musical theater is very popular, but there aren't musical theater songs really on the radio. Right. Like, it's not really. So the exposure is less. But it's the kind of thing where, like, if you want to find something there, it will be there for you. You just have to do a little bit of hunting. Like, there's the Mozart, which is, like, the ultimate classicist. Like, it's the most refined, the most elegant. It's really, you don't hear it right away, but it is extraordinarily, like, I don't know how to put it, but like humanistic. Like you'll find that story in that music. It gets so ridiculously complex, and the more you dig, the more will be there. But on the surface, it's like 16th notes, ticka ticka ticka. Yeah, I don't know. Right. But there are composers like again Wagner, who's just heavy and dark and just almost metallic. You know, there's these Russian composers where there's this ache in every piece of music that you hear. Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky, Rimsky-Korsakov. I mean, just all these different generations where there's just this deep angst that it's like right on the surface. It's just right for everyone to hear, and it's stunningly beautiful. So I guess okay. It's asking me like what I thought was strange about opera.
Or surprising.
Surprising is it's opera just isn't one thing, whereas like metal just isn't one thing. There's 1,000 different derivations and styles within like a composer, and like say the Cleveland Orchestra can perform a piece, or I shouldn't go with symphonic rap, but like the Met can do a piece differently than I don't know, like Deutsche Oper Berlin. Okay. Like they might do the same show, but in a completely different way and say different things. So even like that same thing can be different. So
it's broad just interpretation.
Totally.
And there's a lot of variety, I guess. Like, I mean, I think that's a really good point. When people think of opera, I think they kind of put it into a pretty small box.
Yeah, and that's like anything. You think of metal. They're just like screaming. Like, no, it's sometimes that's what it is.
Right.
But at its best, it can be like stunningly beautiful. Yeah. It's really emotional. So it's the kind of thing. Opera's there if you just want to check it out. And, nowadays there's actually luckily a lot of like government subsidies because most opera companies are considered nonprofits. Yeah. So it's easier for them to stay afloat than other companies. So so tickets are relatively cheap. You can go, $30-$35 and get 3.5 hours entertainment.
Culture.
Yeah, of culture.
You can don a top hat. And
you can wear 2 top hats if you want.
2 top hats.
But it is culture. It's something that like even beyond the music side of it, like you can time travel to some German composer in whatever the early 1800s, and his worldview, the librettist's worldview, the story that maybe he drew from is from that time. I mean, it's bananas. It's totally crazy. Like this show Carmen. It was, when was it written? I think like the late 1800s or mid 1800s, but like it still speaks to us now. Like it's so tuneful, but to them it was this. Like Spain was this exotic place, this French composer, like to this French audience that was just unbelievable to think about this gypsy, this wild gypsy, and this love affair, and desperation and jealousy. Like it's I don't know, it's all very, I don't know. It's just interesting. Primal, super human, primal, yeah. Just get to experience their world, kind of put yourself in their shoes.
Do you have No, I feel like you did have speaking lines, right? Not non-singing lines in Carmen, and it sounded French, right?
Yeah.
So it's French language.
Yeah,
but sung in
French as well.
It's also sung in French. Yeah. Okay, which is weird because it's a Spanish theme.
Well, it's a Spanish story. Yeah. There's a really funny example is this great composer named Puccini. He wrote, so he was famous for writing, the term is exoticism. So he wrote Madame Butterfly, which is it's all in Italian, but it's about this this American man who goes to Japan.
Right, geisha kind of thing. Was it that sort of deal?
I don't know if I'm familiar with that.
Geisha is sort of like
he basically
just really refined, kind of kept woman who's like a service to the man, like a geisha is usually like a service oriented. It's not like a prostitute, but there's a lot of caretaking from the geisha usually. I think from and sometimes there's a performance aspect to it. I guess.
Well, I think this is even darker than that. Literally, this guy goes over to Japan, impregnates this 14-year-old girl.
Oh yeah,
and then has
different.
A wife and goes back to America. This is Madame Butterfly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I
don't know if it's based off of anything, and then of course she's dutiful, and she keeps telling her servant like, hey, he told me he's going to come back. He's going to come back. Yeah. He does come back with a son from his wife, and they're visiting, and like I'm not going to give away the end of the opera, but like it's. Anyway, so his thing is exoticism. So that's again outside of Italy, this Japanese world, these traditions to them that was just completely foreign, even to us. And then another kind of funnier example is he wrote an opera about the the gold rush in California in like the mid 1800s. So it's like, again, it's this big Italian opera. It's all sung in Italian, but it's just like these like grungy dudes wearing cowboy hats and, you know, spurs, and they're at this tavern and they're just drinking whiskey, and occasionally you'll hear English words. They'll be like, "Hello, Jim," like,
and then they'll kick back into the
and then they'll just be like blah 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 in Italian. But it's just cool. But again, it's that exoticism to Italians. It's American gold rush. Like, what is that all about?
I wonder if one of my favorite movies, musicals, it's like late '60s, early '70s, called Paint Your Wagon, with Clint Eastwood.
Oh, sure.
Early in Clint Eastwood's career, like after I think some spaghetti westerns, but before like Dirty Harry and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's musical, and it's about the gold rush in Northern California, but it's just like epic music. I mean, it's big. They're big tunes, big productions, and beautiful orchestration. Yeah. It's the movie is like 3 hours long. It's got like an intermission, sort of like Lawrence of Arabia, like when a cart comes up, it's like, go use the restroom. We know it's been 2 hours already. But I wonder if there's like, if the person who wrote that is referenced. I would be interested to see the play that you're talking about, because I would be interested to see if there's any cross.
It's funny because you'll hear if you were to hear this opera, you'll be like, wow, yeah, it sounds like Western music. But it was written, I think, in like 1918 or something, way before. I mean, like, movies were ever a real thing. So, but like, you hear it and you're like, oh yeah, it's Western music. Of course it is.
Right.
But I don't know. It's
our associations with Western music.
Yeah, but he wrote the first
Western music.
He wrote the first spaghetti western in a really weird way. Crazy. At one point, in the middle of the opera. So
what's the name of the opera again?
La Fanciulla del West, or the Girl of the Golden West.
Beautiful.
And so Minnie, the bartender in this kind of gold mining town, all these rough grungy dudes. They go to this bar and they're all in love with her, but it's all very. Okay. They set it up that for the most part it's kind of a boyish thing. It's never like creepy or anything like that.
Bunch of old men and this 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, exactly. But there's the sheriff. He's one of the main characters, and he has this love for Minnie, and he sings in Act 1. He sings this really beautiful aria to her, but she says, you know what, like, I appreciate it, but you're not for me. I have this kind of other idealized love in my mind. And so at the end of Act 1, this traveler comes in, and apparently they had met each other, years ago or something, and she's actually the one that she's in love with. Okay, so that's all good and well. Second act, it's revealed that this guy is actually this like apparently notorious like bandit and like kills people and he robs banks and all this stuff. And so the sheriff is chasing after him, finds out that this is him, and so it becomes this trio. Okay. So they end up meeting at like Minnie's house. Sheriff shoots Ramirez, he's the bandit guy. Yeah. And so Minnie, she says, hey, how about this? We'll play a poker game. If I win, we get to, like, Ramirez gets to go free, and you never, like, bother me again. And if you win, like, I'll marry you. So they play...
The sheriff.
Yeah, the sheriff. It's like, I don't know, how often in opera you play, like, a freaking poker game to, like, save a dude's life. Like, that is just, I don't know, it's just so spaghetti western and so badass.
Is that play, is that ever produced?
Yeah. I mean, it's not, like, the most most popular opera, but it is sick. Like, you will not have a good time.
That sounds right.
Like, it is so fun.
I'd be totally
It's just, like, it's just, I don't know, it's just fun and kind of goofy, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
It's a shit.
Exactly.
Like, it's theater.
Yeah. It's kind of, that goes with the territory.
Yeah, totally. And it's just it's something new, and it's just weird how you'll listen to it and be like, yeah, this is Western music. And I wonder how much people did copy it. Sure. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the history of that, but I do know there's a theme in Phantom of the Opera that he directly stole from that show. Okay. Like the da 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 da. Like that's literally
that melody's pulled.
Yep, right from La Fanciulla del West.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's cool. Let's talk about some terms, because this is always one of those things that stymie me about certain subjects where it's got its own nomenclature, its own language to it. And so you mentioned libretto. We talked about that one, which is basically the script.
Yeah. The words.
Aria is...
Yeah, it's like a kind of a condensed musical moment. No, it's basically for like a solo singer to kind of express what they're feeling.
Okay.
So rather than having... Okay, so I would contrast aria with... it's called recitative. So recitative is basically like speaking with music. Okay. So it's not like... Obviously, we're speaking right now, but with speaking with music, it would be like... Yeah, it would add a melody to the speech. It's supposed to be very like churny and fast, and it just kind of like chunks along. Okay. Whereas an aria, it kind of has a different like space to it. It's more about emotions and inner feelings and
So aria you would say aria is more emotive, whereas the recitative.
That's more like nuts and bolts. That's
more communicating data facts.
Yes, it's moving the plot along, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But the aria is where a composer really makes a piece. It's like the melodies are all there, the harmony is much richer.
Yeah, and those are the things that we would probably associate with the songs that we remember.
Exactly. Yeah, the arias basically define an opera. Yeah. Like, this opera has this aria. It's so famous.
And then that's probably what the opera singer gets the hard on for. It's like, I want to really sing that aria.
They're hard. Like, yeah, absolutely. And they are some of the most difficult things you can ever try to piece together.
So for you, like, what has been in the past the most difficult aria that you sang? From what play?
Or opera? Difficult. I mean, they're all difficult in different ways. But I can say some of my favorites are actually from this show, the Votre Toast. It's the Escamillo's kind of big Toreador song. Yeah. It's just the second that orchestra starts playing it, like you are transformed into this other world. Like you just feel it. It's just like this ether that just kind of like envelops you. And I think it's just super freaking cool. And just like the elegance of it, but also just that like virility, that masculinity. It's just, I think it's really fascinating. Other arias. There's one. It's called the Piero's Tanzlied. It's from a German opera called Die Tote Stadt, the Dead City. And it's actually an interesting opera. It's not done very often, but it's a post World War I opera, and it's kind of, to condense the meaning of it, it's exactly what you were talking about before, about how like after this giant tragedy of World War I, there was this entire generation that was stuck in the middle of like, what the hell do we do? Do we mourn? Do we just reflect on this until the end of our days? Do we mourn all this and try to learn these lessons, or fuck it, do we have fun and move forward? Yeah. And so the plot is basically this man who I think his wife had died or something, and he's conflicted about dating again and that sort of thing. So it's kind of more simplistic, but it's about that World War I kind of issue and struggle. And so this aria takes place in Act 2, and it's a dream sequence. The whole Act 2 is like in this dream. Wow. So this character Piero, he's a dream figure, and he sings this song it's just eerily beautiful. It literally sounds like, I don't know, like 1950s croon music, but it has a lot of potency, because again, it's all about being stuck in between two choices. Yeah. And both are, I don't know.
Neither of them ideal, probably.
Yeah, but both are equal. You feel this great kind of shame if you were to move forward and be happy and try to live this new life. But I don't know. There's also paying homage to the past and remembering, these painful events. But anyways, it's a very beautiful piece.
So did you sing it?
I haven't sung it in context, but for auditions and stuff like that, I've sung it. Yeah. Man, there's some badass arias out there. Yeah. I mean, like really stunningly beautiful. There's a role I would love to do. It's called the role is Silvio, but it's in Pagliacci, which is famous for the Vesti la Giuba, the sad clown. Okay, Vesti la Giuba. But it's this it's a big love duet that he has with the female lead. But the aria itself, it's him kind of pleading with her. It's the last chance that he has to tell her how much he loves her.
Yeah.
Before their little comedy troupe kind of disbands for the season or whatever. It's just stunningly beautiful. Yeah. It's just so beautiful. And and again, like, the second you hear that music start, you are just transformed into this other place, or you're just transported, I should say, to this new world. It's really, like, when I first was learning it, like, I couldn't make it through because I was just crying.
Really?
I would just and there's, like, there are definitely, like, limitations to classical music in many ways, sure. And there are things that I like, a lot of criticisms that I would have, but, like, I can definitely say, like, it carries a certain type of emotion differently. Yeah. In its own way.
I agree.
And it's, especially if you find that thing that you're really connected to with it. Sure. I think I can say, I think I can say honestly, like, it's something I've never experienced elsewhere. It's I don't know. Yeah, there's just the aspect of performance. I don't know. It's a weird art form. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it. You know, I think it's seen as elitist a lot of the times, but it in some cases. But that's anything. There's elitist, rock and roll people.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. It's just an interesting way to tell stories.
Yeah.
And there's kind of the whole gamut of stories that are told, from I mean, there's comedy operas,
Yeah.
There's tragedies.
What's the name of a comedy opera?
Comedy opera. Okay, I'm trying to think of, like, a really, okay. One of my favorites is honestly it's a French operetta, which means it's, like, a little bit shorter and sometimes has dialogue in it. But it's called
it's another term, operetta.
Yeah, operetta. It's called the Grand Duchess of Gerolstein.
Nice.
I'll probably butcher the French title of it, but it's just freaking stupid and hilarious and dumb. So it's, what is it? It's how does it start? Sorry, I'm dead air. Dead air sucks.
We can cut out some.
No, yeah, I'm trying to think exactly how it starts, but basically, like, there's a young cadet, and he has a girlfriend that he really likes, and he's in the military, and then they're all, like, lined up for this grand duchess, the Grand Duchess of Gerolstein, who's a cougar. She's this older woman. I like where this is going. Yeah, like, never, I don't know, but she's, like, horned up like crazy, and she's like touching all the soldiers, and she's like, "Ooh, you're cute," or whatever, and then like they go off to battle, and she, like, promotes him to this general, and I don't know. Yeah, actually, sorry. I think the girl that he liked before didn't want to marry him, but now he's this general, so now she's kind of getting jealous. And it's goofy. It's just the goofiest plot, and it's super stupid, but it's just fun. It's so fun.
Fun. Yeah.
If you see a good production, I'm not doing the great job of selling it, but there's actually one on YouTube that's super funny.
Like the whole thing.
Yeah, actually,
really?
It's I think a French production, but so the opening overture is just super bubbly and like it's super fun, and so for this YouTube version or this YouTube video of this production, to contrast that, they have this battlefield with soldiers all just, like, laying down, just get crumpled up, and it literally looks like a stage filled with 75 dead soldiers.
Carnage.
But it's just like
the music, hilarious thing. Contrast.
Yeah. So the overture ends, and the soldier, he kind of, like, stammers. He gets up, and he's like, opens up this bottle of liquor, and then everyone gets up, and they're all just, like, hammered. Just like, nice. I don't know. It's just like it's absurdity. It's just absurdity.
That's awesome.
It's fun. Yeah,
Let's talk more about the language thing, because I never really finished that thought.
Yeah, sure.
So do you feel, because it sounded like many of those performers would speak the lines in the language, in this case French, for the piece that you just finished, with a lot of conviction, like they spoke the language fluently. is it the case that everybody's learning just those lines? Like, is it really the case that that's a total fiction and that they don't have any command of the language and that it's totally just by rote of memorizing the lines and I guess assuming they memorize the translation of what those lines mean so you can kind of get into what the actual meaning is? I think that would be important. But that beyond the memorization of that line for that context and all that kind of stuff, your command of the language is non-existent.
Yeah, there's everything in between. I mean, obviously, if you're a native speaker, that gives you a massive advantage in certain ways. But at the same time, you could be a native speaker and be a shitty artist and still not be able to emote anything. Right. So it's kind of everything between. Ideally, you're fluent in every single language. Like, that's the massive ideal, which is, it's impossible. Right. I mean, not impossible, but for most of us, what we do is we get a translation, or we write it. It's rare to have to write a translation because this beautiful human being named Nico Castell in, I think, the 80s or 90s, he was this old opera singer, like a really famous guy, but he translated and transcribed like almost all of the main operatic repertoire, pieces in the repertoire. Yeah. So you can just go to a library and just like look up these word for word translations and you write it in your score. Yeah. But so it gets better with time, but yeah, basically you translate it, and when you learn it, you learn what the words mean. So in the moment, like, you know what it means. Right. But like I could never speak it. Just like I could never like hold a conversation with a French speaker. Right. Like, I don't know. I just couldn't do it.
You the best you could hope for probably is to just recite those same words.
Yeah, exactly.
I can say these sentences.
I could recite them intelligently. They'd get my inflection and they'd get my meaning. But that's just kind of the nature of an art form that there's Russian, there's Czech, there's German, French, Italian, English. You know, there's so many different types of different languages. So you just do the best you can. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously very important to learn the translation. Otherwise, you're just full of shit. You know, you just
right. It is. I just asked that because I was in a student film, like a thesis film. Cool. And it was World War II time, and we were all basically SS soldiers. So we were all, and he wanted to shoot it in German. Shit. So we had a German language teacher come and work with us, and so it was basically just learning all these phrases, the lines, basically the script, just in German. And I felt like I had a really, fairly decent command of it until the cameras, of course, started rolling, and then I was just like fucking totally choking. Yeah, it's really disappointing.
It's especially hard with dialogue, where music has a melody, you can kind of like ride that and get into it, but. Dialogue, it's like, oh shit, where do I start? What's my beginning word? Especially if you don't know a language well, you're like, ich bin, wait, no, it's bin ich, is it? I don't know. I totally understand. Like literally every time before I walked on stage and I had a line, like a spoken line, I was like, okay, it's this one, nous allons, because I have a nous allons and I have a nous avons, which like start different parts of the thing. I'm just like. It's like the same thing. What the hell? Like, why? Why is it the same? Anyways, yeah. Because that's the scary part. Because if you like go into the wrong thing, that wrong path, you're just lost, completely lost.
Went the wrong way down a one-way street.
And then you're just like you're pantsless on stage. Yeah. You are just like fucked.
What's the most embarrassing moment you've had on stage? Speaking of that,
the most. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the most painful, embarrassing one was I was a young artist at Central City Opera, and I was doing a family matinee performance of La Boheme. Actually, I was doing Shaman, nice. Which is I've done it twice since, and it's always been just fine and very enjoyable. But I was singing the aria. He has an entrance aria, so he just comes in, boom, this is me. This is my little story to tell. Yeah. And I mean, I was prepared. I mean, I'd practiced it. I'd never made this mistake in any rehearsal ever. Mm-hmm. But like I was singing it, and I got paranoid that I was off with the orchestra, which is like really easy to do because with a piano it's very percussive. You can hear it, but orchestra is just like violins. It flows and it's harder to hear. And I had this paranoia go off that I wasn't with them. So I looked up, and the conductor, he didn't make any face, but for some reason, I thought he was like...
Imagined a face.
Imagine he was like mad at me. I don't know. And so, for some reason, my mind just went blank.
Yeah.
And for like, I think 2 or 3 lines, like melodic lines, I just didn't sing them.
Wow.
But it wasn't even out of panic. I just like, my mind just went like...
Yeah, it just
kind of turned off. So again, it's a very naked feeling. We're just like... you're trying to pick up where the hell you are.
Right. Jump back in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, because everyone else just kept going. And like I gotta run to catch this train.
Right. Yeah. Because that fucker's gonna keep going. It's just gonna keep on going. They're not gonna stop for anyone. They are not gonna stop for anyone. Yeah. There's so many like, I don't know. Yeah. Live theater is a funny thing. Yeah. I've had a couple other like, I don't know, just like weird situations. So one of the things is, so there's in an orchestral production. Orchestral opera production, there's the pit. Mm-hmm. That's where the orchestra plays, and it's a big no-no to get props into the pit because they're playing $100,000 instruments, right. And if a tennis ball or whatever hits them, it can smash a bow, it can hit them, they can get hurt. Those human beings can get hurt down there. Yeah. So like, it's a big kind of scary thing that companies kind of don't want to address too much, but it's a really scary situation. And I've had 2 instances where, like, things could have been, like, horrific, like, really awful. So, one of them, it didn't happen to me, but I was covering this role at the time, which means, like, an understudy. Yeah. And so, the blocking was, it was Hansel and Gretel, and the father has this big aria where he's telling, so the mother had let the kids kind of run out into the woods, and he comes home, and he's like, well, where are the kids? And she's like, yeah, whatever. I had them play out in the woods. He's like, what the fuck? There's a witch out there.
Terrible idea.
And she freaking like throws him in this oven and they burn to death. So he's telling the story, and the blocking, they had him holding this broom, this long broomstick with a little like leather strap. Mm-hmm. And the director had him like hook around the leather strap like,
and whip it around
and spin it over his head. He's like, yeah, they fly in the air and all this stuff. And, as a safety precaution, the stage crew, they like retied this knot every time. But in the piano dress. So there was no orchestra yet, but there's the pianist in the pit. This guy, he's swinging this thing. Leather strap breaks, flies right into where the violin section would have been. Oh. And this is, a broom, it's like a freaking real broom. Yeah. It would have, it would have smashed instruments, hit someone in the head. Yeah. And like, they would have walked out. Like, if that happens in performance, they stop and they walk out. Because they have a strong union, too. So they'll be like, you can't throw shit in there. It's just ridiculous. It's just like such a close call. Had that literally been the next rehearsal, which is like one of the orchestra dresses, the show was over. Like, they can sue the company. Yeah. Like, the union can sue the company. Like, that season's probably over with. Crazy. Totally crazy. And I had another experience in La Fanciulla del West. Yeah. So my character is Sonora. And he's one of the kind of admirers of Mimmi, but someone cheats at a poker game, and so like this giant fight breaks loose. Yeah. And so I'm beating up this guy, and I've like got him on the ropes, and I pick up this chair, and it's a breakable chair, but with this one, in the movies like the whole chair breaks apart, but this one it was just the back, so this half was kind of sawed off or whatever, and it was just like
pointing to the back.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. And it, it had the little like, what do they call like spindles. Mm-hmm. And so like it was jagged. Like when it came off, it was like 4 or 5 of these like jagged things. So it had always been fine, and he had like a little protector on his back, so I would wind up and hit him. And I think this time around they wanted a bit more spring action, so they like hit him like really hard. He's protected, just do it. So I hit him. This is orchestra dress. So there are a bunch of musicians down there. It hits him, and this thing here's the edge of the stage. This little angled lip. Yeah. Just floats up and literally just like the lip that slides perfectly lands on the very very edge of the lip, like jagged spindles out. Like it could have just been like. Just right down the just hit someone in the head. Oh my gosh! I don't know. It was just. And like, just keep going. And like, what are you nothing you can do. As long as like live theater. The EMT. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. These like little things that could have just tanked an entire production.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I saw like like one of those like kind of Yahoo news things or some little news thing where it basically was like, and such at their concert, like had a freaking light drop off of the trellis and just drop right onto the stage. Awful. And like
it's so scary.
So, I mean, it's like that stuff, because I've done lighting, rigging, and sound setup for like big concerts like that, and they triple check that stuff if they're on point.
They do. Yeah, because they're union dudes.
I mean, so you got to have your shit together on that stuff. I mean, it's all cabled up and blah blah. But that said, stuff still happens, I mean, it's super, super rare.
It's human error.
But it's like somebody just is too drunk from the night before and misses a bolt or doesn't do it tight enough or misses a little, chain lock or link or something like that. And, it's just like, but it's like almost at that point, it's kind of like, maybe that's just fate. Maybe
just, that guy's just a douchebag. So if he deserved to get hit, he was going to be a future Hitler or something.
Yeah, it was just his time to just go or whatever,
Oh my God! Right when you think like thousands of concerts, thousands of shows. I mean, over time. So
and the gear, like if you I worked a Prince show. Years back, it was probably about 10 years ago.
All right.
and the staging stuff, from the audience, it looks pretty impressive, like all the stage props and all that crap.
Yeah.
But then when you're in back with looking how it's like chicken wire and plastic and staples, and you're like, what the fuck? Who put this together? This stuff is barely hanging on. It's it's just so. And this is what you realize, like, I don't know, whoever's listening who's seen Spinal Tap and then who's actually existed in the world of rock and roll, like
great movie, one of the greatest
of all time. Classic, and it's like, and it literally is that. There's just so much ridiculousness and so much like farce going on,
right?
And so many things that are just barely hanging on, like just like by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah,
like this is going to come together, and it's almost like really trusting this thing to fall in place by the merciful hands of fate.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if it's just up to humans in this condition, in this situation, this thing may not happen. So we're gonna go ahead and pray and hope that the gods are on our side.
Yeah. We'll bless those stage crews that do that day in, day out.
Oh yeah.
And perfection. I mean, their goal is perfection and get it like spot on and over the right spike marks.
All those elements, this whole sort of network of things that have to happen at the right time in the right place and the right, just like all of that kind of stuff is just, it's quite a dance into itself.
Oh
like
my God! Day in the life of a crew. Like, what was your? Like, how'd you get into that? Like, what you said, lighting design, or was it? Like...
It was just no, it wouldn't have been design. That's like for the big money.
Okay,
I was just a grunt, but basically, I was just setting up the sound equipment, setting up the lighting equipment, rigging lights, but I wasn't like the rigger who climbed up. The guys who like literally climbed.
And these are like your own like. Does a band travel with their own lights?
No.
Or is it, okay, that makes sense.
Well, no. Sometimes they have
like
their
special
lights, stuff like that. But it depends on the city. Like usually, there's rental houses in each major hub that has all that stuff, and somebody else's job is to contact all those people, tell them exactly what that gear is. That's the lighting designer, and basically saying, this is the gear. These are the lighting. This is the rig that we need. And then somebody has to deliver all that stuff.
Cool.
And
just
then we just show up. It's just like it's like ants.
Yeah.
Crawl out and it's like the truck pulls up and then all the ants come in and just dismember this thing and pull all it out and then assemble this thing and if you watch it in time lapse, it's just it's amazing. And then it all tears. And the band and the everybody, the audience is all gone. They come in, everything happens. So it's like the stage people are the first there and the last gone. Everybody's off partying, having a good time, and then the stage crew is there until like 4 in the fucking morning, like tearing it all apart, putting it all back in the truck. And sometimes it is traveling with them, so it's even more like hustle because they have to have it in the rig. And they have to be on the road because the truck driver has to be hauling ass to the next gig. So so the truck drivers too, man. I was just like marveling, just like you guys are insane. I mean they're just chilling, but I mean it's like their internal clocks must be so skewed, like so fucked up. Their sleep schedules are just non-existent. There's no schedule. It doesn't exist. Which this goes into a whole other subject, but it does terrible things to your immune system and your biological clock and all that stuff. But yeah, so it was a job that I couldn't really commit to for very long. I mean, it was fun. I get to work with like a lot of really great acts. I get a Jane's Addiction reunion show, which is amazing. So backstage for Prince and Jane's Addiction and Sarah McLachlan and just all these great bands. But it's like those kind of schedules are just brutal. You know, it's just too much. And people, you know, over time, it seemed like it was a very surly lot. You know, like not a very conscientious lot. You know, it was a lot of just like smoking and drinking and eating bad food and you know, it's just like stuff that I was just like, you know what? I mean, when I was 20,
maybe not a habit. That's
but you know, it's like when these guys get like 40 and they're still doing that shit. You know, they just get surly. They're like old sailors, man.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I worked at the Greek Theater in Berkeley and Zillerbeck Hall, and in the Greek Theater, like the guy up there in the Greek Theater, and I don't know if you know about it, but it's got, you know, the kind of quintessential Greek theater vibe. Yeah. And it's got these little side rooms, and the guy who managed that theater was literally like the troll underneath the bridge. Like he was short and squatty and kind of gimped and just hairy with a big... It was like... He was like a mountain... not a gnome, a mountain... not an elf. What's dwarf? He was like he looked like he could have been like a dwarf in the Lord of the Rings. Like, and he was just nasty teeth and just a surly dude and always dirty and smelly and like literally lived in this little cave-like spot. And I'm like, what? What is your deal, dude? Like, it's just a weird...
All those, like, normal things just passed him by. It's like, oh, do I want a wife? Yeah, no. Do I want, like, a stable thing? No, it's fine.
I'm just going to live in this little cave.
An above-ground house? Theater. No, I'm good.
Yeah. It's a wild... But, yeah, so I just was like, you know, as a performer, too, it's, like, great to get the insight, because I totally have that appreciation. Like, when I'm on stage as a performer, and I see those people working and doing that, like, I have so much empathy and appreciation for them. I'm always just like, hey, man, thank you for doing that. Like, thank you for having, like... Thank you for having some ears and to be able to actually hear what's happening here and like manage it and make me sound good, because I know that like so much of that is you. You know, I can only do so much up here, but if you're not doing your job, I'm totally at your mercy.
Totally, yeah.
And like the guy, you know, the guys who are paying attention, it's like something happens, mic falls, the boom stand falls, they come up, they pick it up, they get you. I mean, those guys are fucking invaluable, and that's the same for the lighting people in theater and in opera and like all those tech people.
Oh, totally.
Like they are gold.
They have these like invisible hands over the production. Totally. You know, you see these people on stage like, oh yeah, of course it's lit, of course there's light, but where does that come from, and why does it look the way it does? And who put up those sets within? Yeah, like, well, it's all expected. 20 minutes, you know, set change.
Totally.
For at least in in theater.
Yeah. It's just like, boom, knock it out. Like, and everybody's just like, okay, go.
And the precision of it, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I did a summer apprenticeship at Santa Fe Opera, and I'd never really seen much of, like, the stage crew beforehand.
Yeah.
But I think the stage crew there, they also had some sort of apprentice program, so there were a lot of, like, young people there.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. So the performers would be walking in to our dressing rooms, just getting ready. And these stage crew people, they'd be in this like circle, maybe 20, 25 people. Mm-hmm. And they would just be like chanting and barking at each other. And like just these like rich, like, you do this, and then I do that. Da-da-da. Like it was just like that they were getting, it was military. It felt like this military thing that they were, it was like you almost get pumped up listening to it. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like a Maori haka.
I don't know.
You know what haka is?
No.
Haka is it's the Maori chant. It's in New Zealand. The indigenous people are called Maori.
Okay.
And they have this haka. And if you ever watch rugby, they have the.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. So they just like psych. It's how it's a tribal thing. Like it's very traditional in their culture, but they've brought it into the modern world in the sense that they use it to psych out the other team, and they do this whole kind of like, it's Polynesian. You know, the Hawaiians have kind of a version of it too. I think. But it's like, you know, a lot of elbow strikes and knee strikks and, you know, just like
bone on bone.
Oh, just like faces and tongues and mouths open wide and eyes. It's super. I'll show it to you after we're done talking.
Yeah.
But it's but it does, like when you see when you watch, I mean, you can just watch it on the fucking YouTube, and the hackles on your neck, like your hair just like goes up. You're like
danger, danger. I'm scared.
Yeah, it's like exactly. It's like war drums. You're like, oh shit, something's about to go. It just got real, which is kind of the point,
No, yeah, and like it's like more of their lives at stakes at stake in a very real way, and they have to have that military like freakish precision as athletes, as a tribe, or as a stage crew putting on this show, and they have like this maybe a 2-minute time to change this thing before a set, and that's rigid, like that's precise. Your thing.
Yeah, and some of it's complicated. Like I mean, a lot of those changes are not that easy.
Right.
There's a lot of moving parts, and they all have to move in at the right time and in the right direction, and not people like tripping over each other in the process. And
it's totally madness.
Let's talk about money and opera, because people probably don't really have any sense of because in music a lot of people may falsely assume that certain musicians, even very popular musicians, must be making good money.
Right.
Which is often not the case, depending on the contract that you've signed. So you could be enormously popular and be fucking flat busted in pop music or modern, just contemporary music. Yeah,
it's very surprising.
But so in opera, what are the obviously there's a huge window of potential earnings, but like on average, like for somebody like you, if you're comfortable with offering some of this information, like the best that you've ever been paid for a performance per night would be.
Well, I mean, an upcoming contract that I have, it would be like $4,000 a night.
Okay.
That's in I guess a year and a half.
Okay.
Which is three performances. So that's
3 performances. Each one pays you $4,000.
Yeah. So after a month, it's about like 11, 12.
Yeah.
Which that's a lot of money.
Seems like a lot.
But like you want to, it's hard getting other gigs. Like that's just
that's
one
the thing.
month.
That's the one thing.
So if you only get 1 gig a year, you're making $10,000 a year, which whatever.
Right.
But like it's few and far between. I mean, it's definitely.
Like, what would be the max? Like, somebody, I mean...
you can make millions. I mean, if you're famous...
like I was going to say Pavarotti.
I mean, Pavarotti,
but Pavarotti is just, like, ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, he was so iconic.
Yeah, he's iconic.
But,
so but I would say, like, your average person who fronts Phantom of the Opera, like one of those, like, on-Broadway Phantom of the Opera performer.
Well, that's musical theater, and I don't know how the musical theater things work.
Okay.
So it's a
different world.
Yeah, because they do, like... they work for like 6 months straight, and they do like 8 performances a week. So they're a little bit different. But
so operas usually only run how long?
It depends, but maybe like the longest, maybe like 2 months, 2 or 3 months, depending on the house.
Okay.
But a lot, it's just
and how many times
3
a week
or 4 performances. 3 or 4 performances spread over 2 weeks.
Okay.
Like it's a big. They have to kind of maximize their stage time. Because a lot of times they're renting stages that aren't theirs, so that's kind of a whole thing. But
and also, would you say that there's more like that they have to be more mindful of the performers' voices in opera versus musical theater, or not?
Definitely, yeah. That's a big part of it, because like. Look, musical theater singers, they sing their hearts out, but they're mic'd.
Right. Okay.
So we have this kind of upper limit where you have to crank out sound.
Yeah.
If they can't hear you,
no point.
There's no point. But yeah, so I guess that's kind of an essential difference. But yeah, I mean, look, you just kind of try to make your way and try to find gigs and just do the hustle. And just try to get connections and be a good colleague and make sure you're doing good work, because that's what's going to make you survive.
Is there a bulletin board for opera?
Yeah, there is actually.
Really?
There is.
It's a digital bulletin board?
Yeah, it's called Yap Tracker, which stands for
Yap Tracker.
Yeah, which is called it stands for Young Artist Program.
Sure.
But yeah, so singers, at least in the opera world, you kind of. It's weird because for most singers, you only start to make money in their like late 20s, early 30s. That's when you're like developed enough and have the skill set to be competitive, quote unquote competitive. Whereas, if you were in Italy in like the early 1900s, you could have a career younger because it's Italy in the early 1900s. It's opera. There's a lot more opportunities. But now it's a little bit different, and especially post 2008. From what I've heard from older professionals, like fees got cut in half across the board. Wow. So it used to be more lucrative, and if you got the gig, it was more lucrative. Right. But most singers, to answer your question, most singers aren't like
making
crushing
a living.
it. Some are, and it's spectacular when they do, and that's awesome. But it's just you go for the gigs, and hopefully those build to more gigs, and if they don't, cool. That's just part of the game, and you just kind of do the best you can, and enjoy yourself along the way.
Is there, how much of the decision making from the casting director, if that's what they call it?
Artistic director. They're the artistic director.
Okay, so like the artistic director, like how much? Because it feels like at a certain level, as we were watching your performance. Chris and I both kind of had this conversation about, it sounds great. Yeah. But we're not schooled enough in opera to really know the difference, other than to say like the subtlety would be lost on us, is I guess the point.
I totally understand.
And I said, well, to be at this level, everybody's got to be at a certain level. Like no hack is gonna get cast.
Sure. Yeah. For the most part. Yeah.
So like I just wonder like. Yeah, I guess you're saying for the most part, so there is a caveat to that.
Yeah, there are some people who are like, oh shit, like where did you come from? Like you are not, you don't belong here. Like
so you've had that experience.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is rarer.
Sure.
Most people are competent, but
because like
one out of 1,000.
I think like in film, you can get a lot of hacks. There's a lot of relationship reasons for that. There's a lot of like. This person has a name even though they're not really that talented. Yeah. Just whatever those. Other than talent-oriented
totally the same in opera in probably all respects.
Really, it just feels like opera is a thing that you just can't get away with being a hack as much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
not make a living.
No. Yeah, it's safe to look at. I think anything in life, but we can also narrow this down to opera. But that it's like a video game. Like you have a character, and then that character might have like 10 charisma, but three looks, right? But it's like 15 power. It's a game of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, so like each human being has like infinite characteristics that they can sell. They can maximize and sell. So that can be,
and then you can rate at a certain level, like rating that system.
Yeah, exactly.
It helps you articulate that.
Even though it may not be like literal, like that person is a 10 singer, but a 5 actor. Right. But like. You can be a mediocre singer, but be a stunning actor, right? And you'll get more work because you deserve it.
Because you need to act.
Yeah,
I mean, they need an act. They need somebody who can perform. Or there's if you're a kick-ass singer and can't act, in a context like that would be a disaster.
Yeah, so it lowers. So it's all these kind of different attributes, but there are like a big thing now is being like a shredded, jacked singer. And just like looking great shirtless, and
so that's
Nathan Gunn is like the classic example. His career kind of peaked, I would say, like late 90s, early 2000s. But that dude is just like shredded. Like it's awesome. I mean, but he's also a great singer. So
he's not just relying on this like 6-pack abs.
Right. But there are some singers now where it's like I kind of get it. Like you're fucking hot as shit. Like I get it. It's awesome.
I'm just gonna sell that.
Do it. Yeah. And
it's like you can sing good enough. I don't think people are going to be listening for that when they see you rip your shirt off.
Yeah, exactly. Or beautiful women who are like they have good voices, but it's like okay, I'll just kind of enjoy what I'm saying.
I can be.
Yeah, but again, I don't mean to sound cynical about it because that's just it is effective. Sure. Like when you see someone who's like stunningly beautiful on stage, like that has a different effect.
It takes it changes your psyche around it.
Yeah, so it's all just different attributes, but.
What do you think your strongest attribute is?
I try to think of myself as an all-arounder. No,
well versed in.
Actually, I would say an all-arounder. Like I'm not like.
Can you throw a good right hook?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm definitely not shredded, but like I would if I were hired to do a role like that I needed to be. I could do that, you know, and I try to whatever, keep myself fit. I've worked really hard to be like okay on stage, to be able to, I don't know, being on stage, at least when it comes to like acting, if you're a natural, you're a natural, and that's awesome. But it's hard to move. It's because all of a sudden you feel like everyone's watching you, and like you're this like on this 2D plane, and like, where am I? You know, you think of like, oh, everyone walks around, everyone goes to the grocery store and walks around. Right. You know, like it seems super basic, but on stage you have to learn to be like, this. It's stagecraft. It's called stagecraft for a reason. It's create knowing what to do in certain situations. So
the illusion of naturalness. Yeah, in a totally unnatural situation.
And even like a big no in opera is singing into the wings or singing upstage, because the audience, they're getting either half your face or none of your face, right, or none of your sound. So ideally you're straight out facing, but also making it look realistic. So it's. So to answer your question, I feel like I'm an all-arounder, and I can like kind of make my way across the stage. I'm a decent interpreter. I've got a decent like sounding instrument. It's loud enough to get the job done. It's not the loudest. It's not the most beautiful. I'm not the best actor. I'm not the most shredded. I'm just kind of like hovering in like these aspects.
You're like the what do they call it? The quintessential character actor.
Sure.
They're usually not the most beautiful. They're not the most like, but they're solid. They get the job done. They're reliable. They're professional.
And honestly, like that's the fun of it, is developing those weaknesses. Yeah. Developing like maximizing who you are in all aspects. Yeah. Whether that is like, can I be a better artist? Can I like see something more deeply in this? Can I be more expressive? Can I put this other shit aside? Or can I be in better shape? Can I be more athletic on stage? Like there's, I don't know, like any art form that's truly an art form, there's like infinite levels to it. Yeah. And there's like, attaining mastery is really fucking hard. It's a really hard thing to do in anybody's life. Totally. And there's a reason why there's so few masters at any real craft, because it's really hard. And like, for me, I mean, I've been a professional singer for 5 years now. I graduated with my master's in 2012. And like, if I'm to honestly think about myself on that continuum, I'm like 27.5%. On the, if 100% is master, I'm like a quarter way. Like it's just interesting. I don't know. Like how's that with playing guitar? I mean, what's like putting that all together with a band? I feel like there's a whole element of not only your own musicianship, and then like, so what are you gonna play while I'm playing? Like that just boggles my mind. Well, there's like that teamwork.
Yeah, there's multiple. Like as an artist, like I started out playing guitar when I was 15 years old. And I wanted to shred like Steve Vai. Like that's who I wanted to be.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
And I really worked towards that for a long time, and I got good enough in 2 years where I got a scholarship. It was a junior college thing, but it was a scholarship to play jazz in the college.
It's awesome.
And but what I realized as I moved along my musical path was that what did it for me was more about something that was more emotive that I could express through songwriting, as opposed to just guitar.
I gotcha.
I felt like the guitar, it wasn't enough. Like the voice that I could use the guitar as, so way to articulate this, but to like, some people can really just sing through their guitar in a way that I don't feel like I can do. I think I can kind of do it. I mean, I can definitely do it and fake it, to like, it's that whole thing of like, how well do you know this thing? People who know it well might see the difference. Your average lay person would be like, yeah, he's a totally competent guitar player, he plays great, blah, blah, blah. But like, the subtlety is lost on that person. Sure. Whereas like somebody, where for me, I can hear it. Like I can tell when somebody
totally
is making that guitar be their voice.
Top five. Like, who's your icon?
I think Stevie Ray Vaughan was that kind of guitar player. Sure. I think Doyle Bromhall can be in that zone. I think Steve Vai can definitely be in that zone. Yeah. I think let me think who else would fit onto that. I think actually, you know, I don't think he was an extraordinary guitar player, but Frank Zappa could definitely go into that zone. Like there's a solo called "Damp Ankles." I can't remember what record it's on, but it's just really kind of more flowy jazz, almost like something you'd hear off a Bitches Brew, you know, but not that kind of frenetic. That's Miles Davis, kind of psychedelic era, you know. Yeah. But just like. Yeah, man, he's fucking in the zone, and it's not flawless, but it's speaking through him, you know, even though it's not like this flawless execution or what I might like, so it's not even, and again, like the old Mississippi, you know, blues players, like the old Southern blues players.
Sure.
Like you hear that shit. I mean, it's super simple stuff, but it's like what they are imbuing those notes with is something totally transcendent.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, you know. Yeah. But for me, it's like it was a combination. Like I really thought, like I need to use words basically, and I need to use melody. And I didn't start off singing. I never had any intention of being a singer. I was always trying to get my buddies from high school to do that because I wanted to just be the shredder. I wanted to be the guitar player, and it was too much to be like. Have all that attention, you know, but it's like out of pure frustration and the lack of commitment on people's part. It was like, all right, well, fuck, I guess I'm going to do this.
Well, you like grew into your identity, you know, like you maybe somebody accidentally because they didn't want to be this good, committed singer, but
it's like to get the job done, you just do, So like, and then now it's like, I mean, I love guitar as a writing instrument, and I definitely like to do leads and emote through that.
Right.
But if I was, I don't think I would like the idea of just being relegated to that. I struggle with that now as I look for gigs and things like that. I think some bands looking for, and I've been hit up like, hey, do you want to just play guitar for us? Will you be our lead guitar player? And I'm like, I listen to music and I'm like, there's not enough room for me to hear in this context for me to even express a quarter of what I would want to express on the instrument.
Totally fair.
You know, even though you're a competent band or whatever, but my role in this band would be. It wouldn't be enough for me, you know. So it's a real. So for me, it's like my parameters. I feel like have expanded to the point where it makes it difficult to just sort of put myself back in the box to be this sort of fit. Even though I can play bass for a band, I can play guitar for a band. Like, you know, it's like and even singing for a band, it's like your musical palette. Would have to be really wide and really diverse for me to feel like I could really express myself.
Is there like what's your ambition? Like what is your ideal situation? Like in 5 years, would it be being a lead singer in a band playing?
Yeah.
Well, like rhythm guitar where someone is playing or like
no, I would be like Prince. Like basically, I would be a band leader.
Gotcha.
I would write and compose the songs, but I would have competent enough players that would bring their mojo to it as well. But I have that kind of mind. Like I hear things in their entirety.
Gotcha.
It's layered in my brain.
I mean, so it's such a virtuosic like mentality.
I don't know
the exact opposite.
How it comes. Well, I don't even know how to articulate it, but it's just like I hear the whole thing in my head. Like and it's not necessarily like it just drops at once, but it's like once I hear one thing in my brain, like here's the bass line. And then I can play that back as a loop in my brain and be like and then if I layer that down, like it can only do so much in my brain. But then as soon as I start layering it down, now it's outside of my head, and then I start layering and layering and layering all these different textures on top of it, and that's and it just comes natural to me. It feels very easy for me to do that. So in a band situation, it's usually best for me to pre-write everything and then just find cats who are content with just basically regurgitating. They add their flair, but more or less they want you to tell them what to do. Because a lot of what I found is a lot of musicians are utility players in the sense that they're not necessarily create. They love their instrument. Like I don't. The instrument is I love guitars. Like don't get me wrong. Money aside, like I'd fucking have a room full of guitars if I'm honest with myself. But it's a means to an end, really. Like the things, while they're beautiful to look at, I mean they're pieces of art in and of themselves. To me, like I wouldn't have a dozen of the same. Some people are just like, oh, here's 5 strats. Like, I don't need 5 strats. They all do the same thing. Like, I need I need a Rickenbacker here. I need a Telly here. I need a Strat here. I need a Les Paul here. I need one of the Supras, or what are the old Italian plastic guitar. Like, like you need this arsenal, which feels like your palette, all your brushes and all your paint colors, and that to me is interesting. But again, those are things just because like. I'm more I'm not an audiophile, but like I'm really I just have always been fascinated by sound. So unique sound to me is what turns me on. And when I hear records, what we were talking about earlier, it was like super polished, super clean. The production style starts to become really ubiquitous across the board in certain genres, where it's like all the metal bands sound like they went to the same fucking studio. Like the tones are all the same, the drums are all the same.
It's a shame.
And you hear that, of course, in pop, and it's like, so for me, it's like I fall in love with records that have really unique, interesting, unusual tones to them. And I find that more and more, you have to work to find that. It's not something it's not mainstream, because the technology sort of moves people in a particular way, and if you don't have the creativity or the wherewithal or the interest, the curiosity, I think for me it's more curious. I'm like, what does this sound? Like, how does this sound when you do this?
Right.
How does it sound? And suddenly you get, it's like, I'll write a whole song based on just some wackadoodle effect where I've just jerked the reverb way high and put the mids down, and and it's like suddenly I have this monster tone, and that tone is great for a certain thing. It inspires a certain thing. You wouldn't try and use it in any other context. It only works for this, but for this, it's the perfect thing. It's just like Jack White's guitar collection. Like, there are guitars that you can only use that guitar for that song. If you tried to go the other way, like you'd be dropping.
You'd ruin the character.
The character. It's totally
so funny.
So that's, for me, it's just about composition. It's like composing great songs. I do film too, so obviously, like, I like the combination of the visual and the auditory. I think those can make a beautiful marriage together. And then and then just turning audiences onto them. People developing in a I would love to have the kind of audience that like Buckley had or Whitley had. They weren't huge audiences, but they were devoted audiences, and it's because those artists were so devoted to their craft that what they put out there was what they got back, was this devotion to beauty, to art, to creativity, to transparency in the art.
That moment, that one special thing that's going to evaporate the next.
Totally that
ephemeral live thing.
Yeah, your name in the beach sand that the water comes and washes it away, and that. That also often comes at a price sometimes, like, because that kind of rawness makes you vulnerable to the intensity of the world, especially in showbiz.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? A lot of people, if you talk to people in showbiz, I mean, I think, your aspect of showbiz versus like mainstream showbiz, where that is just there's such a nastiness about it, you know what I mean? It's just like it just gets ugly because there's money involved and there's egos involved and all this kind of stuff. And I think so it's like to sort of just stay underneath that, and a lot of those artists kind of like peek their head into that, and even a band as big as Pearl Jam, like they had their moment where they're on every show and all the late doing everything, and then they were like, fuck this, like we need to reel it in because this is going sideways, because mainstream culture takes it sideways because everybody's pimping it, because they all want a piece of it, whether it's emotionally or economically or whatever. And it's like, no, we gotta close the wagons, oops. So it's like circle the wagons, bring everything in, keep it tight, don't reveal too much, and then wait for the kind of less ideal audience to sort of weed themselves out, and then you have the people who are like the people you could actually just sit down and have a meal with, and not feel like they're gonna
talk about every aspect of your previous album, and they would know it intimately,
and they're not gonna like stalk you, and they're not gonna just be creepers, and they're not gonna just bullshit, and that, for me, like as an artist, I remember the quote from, it was something that Kurt Cobain said, where it was like, at this height of his fame, he'd go out on stage and he didn't like who he saw in the audience, because who he saw was a byproduct of the machine, of just pumping this shit, his soul out there, pumping it out there as this commodity. And now you got all these people who really aren't seeing it for what it's,
like people who don't understand him.
Yeah, why he put it out, what it's about for him. And he contributed to that. I mean, he chose to be on the cover of all these different magazines. He said yes to that. Nobody put a gun to his head. But that said, it's like, for me, that's a scary thing, because it's like I want to feel like the people who I'm reaching are, by extension, me, I guess, in a way. It's like that they feel what I feel, that they're receiving this, and it doesn't have to be in the, I say the right way in quotes, but in the way as open as that can be, but in the way that it's meant to be received. I don't know how else to articulate that. And that there's a because I don't really put things out with a real like agenda, but there's an emotive, visceral, sort of almost cinematic quality to most of what I do, I think.
So songs have their own life. Like they
breathe
do their own thing. I totally understand.
So you can't control
totally
all of that, but at the same time, like, and people are gonna take it however they want. But I guess that there's the soul of it. I feel like is what
you have a mood you're trying to get across.
I hope that they receive.
Totally.
And I feel like that's what I observe. It was the soul of these artists, I think, beyond the tunes. Even though the tunes were a vehicle for that, it was the soul of these artists that created such a devotion in their fan base. Like, it's just wearing all of that so openly on their sleeve.
Totally.
So that would be an ideal scenario.
Okay. I see. All right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
For you? 5 years?
Yeah. 5 years. It's interesting.
Like, if you're like 5 years from now,
I would love to
looking back, and now you're talking about what you've done in this last 5 years.
It's funny because, like, I totally relate to everything that you said, and I can relate it to my own life. Narcissistic. No, like the ideal would be to work like 6 months out of the year, make enough money, and then just like travel the rest of the time. That would be cool. Like on like a surface level.
I will. Yeah.
But I have to say, kind of going back to that Kurt Cobain thing, like, I bet when he was working like the clubs and small bars, like there were people that were right up close to him, and he felt that connection, that
real,
people who were excited to see him in this like local level. Like some of my most enjoyable operatic or just performing experiences are in just like tiny little communities where there's no bullshit. They just want to see an awesome show, and they don't even, like, I just did a gig in central Minnesota with this company called Lakes Area Music Festival, and it's in it's in Brainerd, Minnesota. It's this tiny little town. They perform in this this middle school. There's this old post-war middle school.
Wow.
But it was actually has a very beautiful theater. It was a really small theater. But we did Carmen. I did the role Escamillo. But it was funny because you talk to this crowd afterwards. You talk to these people, and they didn't know that Carmen gets killed. Like they just had no. They didn't know the story.
Yeah,
it was just opera and like the classical music arts in many ways are foreign to that. That type of community. But this organization, they're very spirited, and they're very much beloved.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've never felt so much love from an audience than there. Or some other places it's just like, oh, you're another singer on our stage, and that's great. You did a good job. But it's more removed. Whereas there, it's just like, oh,
they're great.
They're so grateful. They're so unbelievably grateful to people came to their little community. And again, like it's not the best paying gig, but man, that doesn't matter, because that's the shit you take with you 40 years from now when I'm not singing anymore or whatever. You remember those. Your colleagues and hanging out and just I don't know.
I feel that.
Like, so asking like what the ideal is, that's, I don't know. Yeah, it is that intimacy. That's kind of the that's the goal.
If you couldn't sing, what else would you do?
Dude, I have no idea. I'm not such a blue collar guy. I mean, I've done all the manual labor jobs you could ever name. I was a mover for a summer. I was a server for 2 years.
Yeah.
I've worked at a frozen pizza factory.
Wow.
I was a groundskeeper at an apartment complex. I was a DJ.
A groundskeeper.
A groundskeeper, yeah. I mean, we just like trimmed hedges and shit.
Yeah.
I was in high school. Yeah.
What do your folks do?
My dad, he's kind of the classic like scatterbrained artist, you know,
Nice.
just kind of
Like what's his medium?
that's a good question.
Or does he have one?
A lot of different ones. He's for better or for worse, I'm scattered like him.
Yeah.
Like a lot of just different interests. And he did like glass etching for a while and like jewelry work, like beads, drawing, computer graphics, stuff like that. But not a professional, like more
hobbyist.
And then my mother works in what is it? Insurance software management.
Okay.
Or whatever. She's just I shouldn't say just, but she's a manager.
Yeah.
At like a insurance software company.
Do you feel like she had other ambitions that she never followed?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. But I think, she wouldn't mind me saying this, but like emotional and like mental illness can get in the way of a lot of hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
And I've certainly experienced that in my life very directly.
Wow.
And I know she did, and she's a fucking warrior, and she's fought through it. Yeah, and she's come out on the other end a very like sane and like good person. And I think my dad also struggles with that very much. And again, they're both good people with problems like anybody else.
Sure.
But yeah.
Interesting.
How about yours? Was your upbringing beautiful and perfect and ideal?
Yeah, totally. It was roses.
As it should be.
Yeah.
No.
Everything was just so fluffy and light, like cotton candy.
Yeah.
And
Are you from Texas originally?
No. Most of my formative years were all in Arizona, so I mean, I count myself in Arizona.
Okay,
more than anything else. But I was born in Las Vegas, of all places.
Cool.
Yeah, not too many of us I find in the world.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a cool like.
It's got a little.
resume,
It's got a little moniker. Yeah, a little mark there for me.
Yeah.
But going back to the other things that you would do, like one of the things that I would love to do is study. Like I love art of all kinds.
Yeah.
And I noticed, while you were here, you were working on artistic endeavors.
Yeah.
Andrew's work can be seen at the wall of, what is it called?
Well, it's the Hope Gallery
wall. The Hope Gallery wall.
It actually cannot be anymore.
Oh, shit. Because everything's impermanent.
Yeah, so I put it up on Saturday.
And it's already gone?
I drove by after the performance, and someone put a giant tag over, like, the whole thing, which it's totally fine. Like, I have my pictures.
It's part of the process.
It's almost a relief because I was like worried. Even before I was like, oh, I wonder how it's doing. Like I wonder if
my baby
has anybody done anything. But it's like it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I
surrender.
Again, we had that conversation earlier about the
sand mandala.
Yeah, it's there is a disturbing relief to know that it's covered up. Whatever that means. I don't know
whatever that means.
Like I mean, if I'd put it like in an art gallery and someone maimed it, then I'd be pissed. Yeah. But like
you knew what you were.
Yeah, I totally knew, and it's an odd feeling. I didn't expect I would feel this way. Anyways, I don't know.
Yeah. But you clearly love all those multiple, like just exploring these different aspects and areas of your own creativity.
Yeah. Visual art is the shit. It's so awesome.
I mean, there's something really cathartic about the physicality. Like I do a lot of work that ends up being like computer based, and which I feel is very, I mean, it's satisfying in terms of the result on the back end.
Meaning like film and editing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, sure. So much is in the digital realm. There's something really cathartic about physically handling the shit. Like sculpture. You're getting dirty and slimy and sloppy and, and painting. You paint all over the place and it's just, you're moving your body in different ways. And one of the art forms that really appeals to me, just again coming from the Southwest, is Native American jewelry and working with steel and stone.
Okay, super cool.
So I would love to like totally apprentice with like a Hopi or Navajo jeweler and
dude, that sounds awesome.
Learn how to work these things because some of those artists, man, there's magic in those pieces. Like those big steel, like imprinted with these beautiful stones, like I love turquoise, and so yeah, that kind of work really does it for me, and and it's expensive, so part of it is just like, maybe I should learn how to do it just so I can make my own pieces, you know?
Yeah, sure,
but,
sure.
yeah.
And you totally could.
Yeah, totally.
It's just kind of learning the design and your own vision for what you want it to be, and then the techniques to make that happen.
There's actually a guy here, I don't know if he's based out of Austin, but there's a guy who has his work in some of the kind of boutique-y men's stores, like Stag and that sort of place, you know, that here in town. And he's clearly pulling from that style of work, and beautiful work, but it's like you can see him, how he stepped out. He's clearly learned the technique and learned the style and the motif, but he's adding this quality to it, which is great. You know, he's really adding his own stamp onto it. And also ridiculously expensive, you know, prohibitive to own. You know, it's like, let's see, I could buy a couple of basses and a mandolin.
Oh, it's so not worth it.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god,
shit metal,
but you know, but it's like,
made.
it's beautiful. You know, I would totally do it, and if you know, I had extra money laying around for that kind of thing.
I don't know. We live in such an awesome era with the internet, where like, you know, I'm sure there are like 10 dudes in the Austin area who are like, I'm a master jeweler and I want to make some extra money by teaching someone who would love to learn. Totally. And, you know, they're just as earnest as a pupil would be.
Well, and as
like,
with,
you know,
share that love, But as also with any art form, generally speaking, you can usually exploit their lack of money and get a commission apiece. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Like you get somebody who just doesn't understand. Like we actually know a couple of jewelers who are kind of like that.
Sure.
Who are, I mean, they don't do this kind of work, but they're people who really make nice work, but don't get the value of it yet because nobody's really reinforced that. You know, they've had a handful of patrons because they go to the market or whatever and they sell it, but it's like they haven't found their niche because they're at a marketplace where the people who they might be able to sell that kind of work to just are not that interested. Like, you know what I mean? So it's so much of this is about where you're presenting what it is that you do, whose eyes are getting to see this, and then how you package it. And so there's just like all of that kind of stuff. But in that said, it's like you get this really good craftsmanship, you know, and you just say like, listen, this is what I can afford to pay. Not twisting your arm, but this is what I would like, and if you're into it, I for this, you know, it's a more direct exchange. It's not this arbitrary, like I've arbitrarily set the value of this thing that I've spent. It's like I have a friend who's an artist that way, and it's like, you know, he makes these pieces, and he can knock out these pieces like in 20 minutes, right? They're big, full size, big scale pieces, but his technique is such that he can knock them out in 20 minutes. So he can do a day and he's got a body of work, right?
It's awesome.
And then they sell for like $6,000, $7,000 a pop, right?
I love it.
But it's like, you know, his explanation is like, well, you're not paying for the 20 minutes it takes me to make. You're paying for the 20 years it took me to figure out how to make it in 20 minutes.
Right.
Right?
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
So it's interesting, you know, and this is the thing I think people miss about the arts. Like even graphic designers, I mean, nobody gets more reamed than fucking the arts in the corporate world. You know, the creatives in the corporate world generally just get raped. It's horrific.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like your graphic designers, your front end web guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find it's hard. You can find gigs that do right by you and that really value you.
Yeah.
But you spend the next, you know, rest of your time, or somebody in the organization spends the rest of their time trying to convince the client why they should be paying this amount, as opposed to like some joker organization down, or some kid who just graduated from art school.
Yeah.
It's like, well, and the thing is, sometimes you really can't justify it. Like that kid is just as good, is doing just as good. I mean, the only difference is professionalism, whether they're gonna do it on time, whether they're gonna do it
kind of like the long term sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like all those other aspects, you know, and it's like the reliability and the relationship and all that kind of stuff. But people are, you know, it's like. I don't know. I can't say that there's a trend towards one direction or the other, but I definitely see, you know, because of the technology and because like now I can go online and hire a graphic artist who earns in ruples or in yen or whatever,
sure.
and so I get the deal. They're still making more money than they would make if they did it there for their local constituents.
Yeah, sure.
From me, but I'm still paying way less than I would pay somebody here in Austin.
Yeah.
You know, and so that it's economics.
It's also interconnected. You know, Who would have thought? Yeah, graphic designer from Russia,
Bangladesh.
or from Bangladesh. Like,
Totally. Right.
it's bananas.
Yeah.
It's totally bananas.
It's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Let's get back to you. What's coming up next? What's the next on the horizon? You've got you just finished one here in Austin. You've got 2 more next year in 2018.
Exactly. Yeah.
So those are, what are they?
Yeah. So go back to New York for a little bit. I come back. My first show back in 2018. It's Ariadne auf Naxos.
Okay.
Which is a fun, quirky little German opera, but most of it's going to be in English.
At the Long Center as well? Or?
Yeah, the Long Center, also with Austinopera.
And that's in what month?
The production is in early February, late January, early February.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm back in New York. I'm doing a show there for a month. It's a really cool show. It was premiered about 3 years ago in Cincinnati, and I've worked with the composer before, and it's really beautiful music. He writes. He's one of the premier American composers, and he writes in this like kind of neo-Americana style. So it almost sounds musical theater, but like old school musical theater.
Interesting. Okay.
But like it's very tuneful and very listenable, but very emotional. It's very like
What's
raw.
it called?
It's called Morning Star. And it's about this early 20th century New York City Jewish family.
Yeah.
Single mother, 2 daughters, and like these suitors who are all kind of
Less than ideal.
Yeah, well, some of them are, some of them aren't, and then situations kind of get in the way of the one that was ideal.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool show. Definitely worth. Yeah, the first production of it was maimed by kind of outside forces. Like the music is solid. It tells the story so well and so beautifully.
Nice.
But there's certain things that kind of hindered it from taking off, I think, as a story. But whatever, that's how it goes. Yeah, I mean,
well, it's good enough to somebody spend money to get it produced.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's doing something.
But yeah, honestly, a lot of my upcoming work is with Austinopera, and I'm like super grateful to this artistic director, and I'm not just kissing ass. Like it's on like a personal level. Like it's I don't know. It's magic. It's beautiful when someone believes in you.
Totally.
When like no one else will.
Right.
You know,
it's huge.
And it's very special. So yeah, doing that in New York. Coming back for La Traviata, I have a tiny little part in that.
Oh, yeah.
Then I've got a gig in Minneapolis, doing actually another Carmen. Carmen's a very popular show. So
the traditional version?
It's more traditional, yeah. But so the cool thing about this company, it's called Mill City Opera in Minneapolis. So I'm playing Morales. He's one of the early characters, whatever.
Yeah.
But so their opera house is this old grain mill that exploded in the early 20th century.
This is a real place.
Real. They're literally like the ruins. These outdoor ruins. So they set up like a stage within these stone ruins where like hundreds of people died like from this explosion, this factory explosion.
Crazy.
Because it's such a big like industrial city.
Yeah.
I was a while ago. I was bored and I was reading kind of some city history of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And
it's a great city, by the way.
Dude,
I like it.
It's a fucking awesome city.
Yeah.
I love the Twin Cities.
Wouldn't want to be there for the winter, but the summers are magical.
But that's the thing, like, if you work downtown, there's, like, networks of skywalks.
Totally.
So you can just, like,
and the
go from building to building.
Bike paths all over the place.
There's, like,
ridiculous. Lakes
literally
everywhere.
a highway system of bike paths, completely independent of any roads. It's totally crazy.
Anyway, so the building...
No, I was looking up kind of some Minneapolis history, and there was a time... I don't want to say it was... I think it was flour. They produced like 25% of America's flour.
Oh wow!
Something. But because they were so like mill oriented.
Yeah.
There was a time period, I think like the late 1800s, where there were like multiple artificial limb shops in the city because all these dudes were working in these factories and getting their arms like chopped off. Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know, just like what an era in time when there's like 8 different
artificial limb shops.
Artificial limbs.
All competing
There's a
with
real
each other.
business here in artificial limbs. It's like, shouldn't we just figure out how to
make
keep
this
people
safer? Yeah,
from
come
losing their limbs instead of creating a whole
It's like this leech
model?
Business. Like, yes,
parasitic,
lose your limbs.
Yeah, exactly. What can we do to make these machines less safe?
Yeah, there's like
because our business is slow, right?
A lobby
it's not working for
to
me.
make like
to take away
weaken
the safety
standards.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's happening now. Actually.
I think it is. Unfortunately, Lordy, that is bananas. Totally bananas.
Well, let's wrap it up because my voice is about to totally die.
Yes.
I'm cooking. But where can people follow you?
Sure.
Can
they totally.
Do you want them to?
I would love them to.
Creep on you?
Yeah,
I creep in your profile.
I have a website. It's andrewlovato.com. That's kind of my professional operatic output, my website. But I also have a blog that I run. It's called conformityisdead.com.
Great.
And it's kind of a place where I put like my other varying interests.
Yeah, and just all the other creative endeavors.
It's a way to kind of put it all in one place and just.
Do you write about your travels and stuff when you're in these different locations? I have, do some photos?
I have a bunch of different shit. So one of the things I like to do, they're called like city bucket lists.
Yeah.
So if I go to a city, like I was in St. Louis this last summer for a gig. I was there for 2 months. And I put together, just what I found to be like 30, 40, 50 things, like restaurants, tourist things, bike paths, like all these things that I consider the bucket list of St. Louis. And I write a little blurb about when I went there and what I experienced, because only the things that I've done, or I list that I haven't done them yet. So they're all very like experiential. I'm not just like compiling bullshit.
And then,
this is like good. I think it looks good.
But so it's a blog that represents my scattered nature, my ADD nature. So
that's perfect.
Yeah, well, thank you so much talking to me, man.
Thanks for
chill. I love it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
it's good to get some insight into worlds that I think are way beyond most people's peer view. And that to allow, that's the part of this show that I really like is hopefully giving people a window into other people's worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, life is so much depth in so many different directions. Like the bands that you listed. Like there's these sections of music that I know nothing about. Like I could. I was talking to my girlfriend that like, we have so much time where we can be active. Maybe up until we're 70 years old. Where we can actually go and do things. And it's time when our body kind of like I want to spend the last 10 years of my life just like all these different albums that I've never heard. That I want to like hear it all just in my like weird state where I can't vegetable state. I just want to hear all the great bands and just
be on
enriched.
LSD at the process.
I want to be on massive LSD.
Safe journey, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
We'll see you next time you come into town.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. So what'd you think? Cool dude, right? Andrew Lovato. Look him up, andrewlovato.com, Lovato.com, right? Yeah. Yeah, man. He's going to be back here in Austin next year. A couple of times. Doing a couple of more performances, some larger than others. But, he'll be back around doing his thing, working his magic. But he's an interesting guy, quite talented in multiple areas. He was doing a little art project for our art wall, our outdoor art gallery here in Austin, which is kind of a situation where you go and put your art on a wall like a graffiti artist, and then it goes away because somebody covers it up with their own work of art. So it's very Buddhist in that way. It's very ephemeral. You can't get attached to it, so you better take a fucking picture of that shit if you want to remember what you did. But I was watching him work on it while he was here. It's quite good. So yeah, he's a man of many talents, but he's chosen to focus that in the vocal area and the world of opera right now. If you like the music, this is a song called Ice Crystals from a guy named Everett Almond. So you can check that out on YouTube, probably. That's where I got it. Free music, baby. Royalty free. I thank you guys. If you ever listen to this, like the guys who write this stuff and put it all together, thank you so much for putting it out there for guys like us to just use and liven up our work, our podcasts. You are the unsung heroes. I know, because I do what you do on your end too. So I totally get it. And I appreciate you, just as I appreciate you, the listener. If you want to check out more of my music, you can check that out at shamanjohnmusic.com. That's SHAMANJON music.com. If you want to check out our website, you can go to thewisdomdistillery.net. If you want to support the show, there is a Patreon link there that you can go and show some love. I'm working on a really cool music project right now. I'm not going to disclose too much, but it's basically 10 songs, 5 studios, 5 producers, dozens of musicians, and one great story. And I'm going to be documenting this, obviously making a record out of it, as well as making films, sort of behind the scenes capturing of the process of writing and producing and recording these songs, and all the other musicians who are involved and the producers, telling the stories of some of the classic studios here in Austin, some of the ones that have been here forever that you don't necessarily know about, but that have a lot of character, a lot of rich history, and the producers who work in those studios, and the musician stories who are working on the record, as well as creating like a coffee table book that'll be imagery from that whole experience, and music videos for each song, and then sort of stories per each song that get captured, the 2 songs per studio. There'll be kind of a short little documentary piece about all of that going on simultaneously. So this is all going to be very exclusive content for people who are patrons of this particular project, and it's just going to be kind of a one-off thing. The album will only be for the people who support the project. It's not going to be mass distributed. It's basically like artwork, you kind of just make one or a handful of signed prints or whatever, and then that's it. That's the end of it. And then you go into the next project. So that's kind of how I'm going to handle this next music project. The songs I'll perform live, obviously in different contexts and things like that. And the show that we perform for the patrons will be the only time, and we may do it, once or twice or something, depending on people's schedules, but we'll only do, just less than a handful of shows that will perform that album in its entirety. We won't do that again, and it won't be those musicians again, most likely. So it'll be a very rare experience. As well, they'll be the only ones who really get the access to the book and access to the director's cut film and the exclusive content that's all the behind the scenes stuff. So that's a big project that I'm working on, and it's very exciting, and it will be very time consuming, but that's what we do when we love what we do. So yeah, if you're interested in that, and you want to stay informed, I would go to shamanjohnmusic.com or just email me directly and I can get you on the list, but it's easier if you just sort of automatically go to shamanjohnmusic@gmail.com. And I can get you on the list, and you can keep in the loop and find out what it's going to take to get involved in that process. It'll be very cool. So I guess that about wraps it up for this podcast. And I'll leave you with a little ditty from one of my older songs called As Good As Your Yesterday. Thanks for listening. See you next time.